A paranormal romance audiobook. You will not go to him. Vaelcor's voice was low, controlled, and far too steady for a house that still smelled like funeral wax. Maeryn stopped in the corridor and turned slowly. The tapestries on the walls showed wolves crowned in iron, alphas with their hands raised in oath, a history that demanded obedience. Tonight, every thread felt like a leash. "He's my father," she said. "Move." Vaelcor stepped closer until his shadow swallowed her. "You will embarrass the pack. You will embarrass me." "You are not my alpha," Maeryn replied, and the words tasted like blood and freedom. His smile was small. "Not yet." That was when she understood. Not suspected, not feared, understood. Maeryn Eldrane was not even cold, and Vaelcor Thornivale was already speaking like a man who had measured her worth in titles, in heirs, in how quiet she could be kept. Marin's fingers curled around the edge of her cloak. Beneath the fabric, her pulse stuttered hard, too loud in her own ears. She forced her breathing into stillness the way her father had taught her, the way a wounded wolf learned to move without drawing hunters. "Let me pass," she said. Vaelcor's hand shot out and closed around her wrist. Not painful, not yet, possessive. The touch lit something in her skin that she hated, a reflex older than manners. Her stomach tightened with a sick flash of memory. Heat. Smoke. Ironwood doors that would not break. A child's lungs burning as the lodge became a furnace. "Do not test me tonight," Vaelcor murmured, his thumb pressing against the pulse he was holding. Maeryn leaned in until her mouth was near his ear, close enough that her words were for him alone. "Touch me like that again and I will scream. I will scream until every visiting alpha knows what kind of man is trying to inherit my father's seat." For a beat, Vaelcor did not move. Then he released her as if she were something that might bite. "Go," he said softly. "Say your goodbye. But tomorrow you will do what you are told." Tomorrow, the funeral, the reading, the cage clicking shut. Maeryn walked away without running. Running was for later when it mattered. She reached the viewing room by slipping through servant passages, a headscarf pulled low, borrowed shoes quiet on stone. The guards at the door were pack men, men who had once brought her sweets when she was small. Their eyes passed over her like she belonged to the walls. Their noses did not catch her the way they should have. Her missing scent was her curse. It was also her knife. Inside, candles surrounded the coffin like a ring of watching eyes. Sacred herbs burned in small bowls to keep wolves calm, to keep grief from turning into teeth. Marin's wolf did not calm. Her wolf had been weak for years, half asleep under the weight of what she survived, but the sight of the coffin stirred it. A low, aching growl rose in her chest. Maeryn Eldrane lay in polished darkwood, dressed in the ceremonial coat, his hands folded like he was still holding the pack together. His face looked too still, too quiet. There was a faint cut along his jaw, hidden beneath careful preparation. He did not die gently. Maeryn sank beside the coffin. She did not touch him. Rules said the dead must remain unhandled until sealing, unmarked by desperate fingers. She clenched her hands instead, nails biting skin. "Father," she whispered. "You promised me I was safe." The word safe cracked open her mind. The fire came back with brutal clarity. Not a story told at the edge of a bed, not a memory softened by time. A living thing. She was a child again, the lodge shaking under blows. Outside, wolves howled, not in grief but in conquest. Scent was wrong that night, masked and smeared with herbs so defenders could not track attackers through the smoke. The settlement guards fell first. Then the screaming started, women and elders and children running in the dark. Her father's roar had shaken the walls. He had tried to reach the fortified doors. Someone outside had been furious, failing to break in. Then a voice, cold with impatience, had said, "Burn it." Heat had turned the air into knives. Her mother had shoved her toward a crawl space, hands shaking so hard Maeryn felt it through the wood. "Do not make a sound," her mother whispered. "No matter what you hear." Maeryn heard everything. Her brother crying until he didn't. Her mother coughing, choking, the sound of someone forcing bravery into breath. The lodge groaning as flames ate it. When Maeryn crawled out hours later, ash clung to her hair. Her eyes were pale from smoke and shock. In the weeks that followed, her hair turned white strand by strand as if grief drained its color, and her scent faded. Healers called it trauma. Spirits, a damaged wolf. Bairn called it a warning. He kept her close after that, kept her hidden, kept her from strong alphas and crowded rights. He protected her like she was a secret that could get the pack killed. Now he was dead and the secret was hers to carry. Maeryn stared at his face until her eyes burned. "Tell me who did it," she whispered. The air shifted behind her. She listened instead of turning. Footsteps, slow and controlled. A scent she did not recognize, cold and clean, like snow crushed under leather. Her wolf twitched awake. Maeryn rose carefully and turned. A tall man stood near the doorway, broad-shouldered, dark coat fitted like it was built for fighting rather than ceremony. His eyes were gray, reflecting candlelight like steel. Power rolled off him in a quiet wave, not shouted, simply present, the kind that made rooms reshape themselves around him. An alpha, a strong one. "You should not be here," he said. Marin's chin lifted. "Neither should you." His gaze swept her borrowed disguise, the plain scarf, the lenses that dulled her pale eyes. A maid alone in a restricted room at night, either brave or foolish. "Depends on who is asking," she replied, steadying her voice the way she steadied a blade. "If you came to offer condolences, do it tomorrow." "Tomorrow you will be hidden again," he said. "Tonight truth slips." Truth. The word scraped her nerves. "Who are you?" Maeryn asked. He glanced at the coffin, and for a brief moment something like respect softened his mouth. "Rhovan Asterforge, Alpha of the Frostmere Marches." The name hit like winter air. Frostmere was a territory of harsh borders and harsher justice. Bairn had spoken of its alpha once in the careful tone of someone discussing a storm that did not care who it drowned. Maeryn kept her face blank. "Then you are a guest. Guests follow rules." "Vaelcor is trying to wear your father's throne," Rhovan said, and the bluntness of it made Marin's stomach twist. "He cannot even answer simple questions without sweating through lies." Anger flared hot and immediate. "Do not speak about him like you know." Rhovan's gaze held hers. "Then tell me why Bairn's daughter has not been seen. Tell me why the heiress is hidden while alphas arrive to pay respect." Marin's heart thudded. He was too observant, too close to the edge of her secret. "I am not the person you think," she lied quickly. "What is your name?" he asked. A name surfaced from panic. "Myra." Rhovan's eyes narrowed slightly. "Myra." He said it like he was tasting the lie. Maeryn forced a thin smile. "Now leave, this is private." Rhovan stepped closer. Not threatening, not yet, but the distance closed until her skin felt too tight. Her wolf pressed forward inside her like it recognized him, like it wanted to bare its throat and bite at the same time. "Your eyes are wrong for a servant," he said quietly. "Even behind those lenses." Many people had pale eyes, Maeryn wanted to say. Many people survived fire. Many people had scars, but his voice was too certain, and certainty was dangerous. She shifted toward the door. "You are inappropriate in a morning room." "So is your fiancé," Rhovan replied. The word fiancé hit her like a slap. Vaelcor's hand on her wrist, Vaelcor's quiet threat. Tomorrow. Maerin's mouth opened, and for a heartbeat she almost told him everything. Then she remembered how alphas bargained, how protection had a price, how her father had spent years keeping her from becoming a token traded between powerful men. She stepped out of the room and left Rhovan with the dead. In her quarters, Maeryn locked the door and leaned against it until the tremor in her hands eased. She tore out the contact lenses and blinked at her own reflection. Pale eyes, white hair. A face too young to carry what it carried. There was no time to collapse. The funeral would gather the entire pack at the graveyard. Vaelcor would stand at the front and perform grief. Then he would anchor his claim through law and right, and afterward he would close his fist around her life. Maeryn pulled a cloth bundle from beneath her bed. Cash, a thin knife, a cheap phone unconnected to pack accounts, a pair of glasses that could replace the lenses if she needed to vanish as someone else. Her heart steadied as she checked each item. Then she moved, quietly, through the servant passages Bairn had shown her long ago. "If anyone ever makes you feel trapped," he had told her, "you leave, even if it means leaving me." She had hated him for saying it. Now it was the only tenderness he could give her. Bairn's office sat on the second floor in a corridor Vaelcor's men had started watching since the death. But grief dulled sharpness. Pride made Vaelcor careless. The house was full of visitors, full of moving bodies, and Maeryn moved like a shadow between them. A door opened ahead. Two men stepped out, both with the watchful stillness of betas. Their attention was anchored on someone behind them. Then Rhovan appeared. This time he wore no coat, only a dark shirt half undone at the throat as if he had been interrupted. The sight of bare skin and hard muscle hit Maeryn with an unwanted flush of heat. Her Omega instincts stirred, furious at her, hungry at him. His eyes found her instantly. The betas began to speak, but Rhovan lifted a hand and they fell silent. "Leave," he said, and the command was quiet but absolute. They hesitated only a fraction before they went, footsteps fading down the stairs. Maerin's pulse skittered. Being alone with him in a narrow corridor felt like standing at the edge of a cliff. "You are reckless," she said. "So are you," Rhovan replied. "Tell me your real name." "Myra," she insisted. Rhovan took one step closer. "Liar." The word should have made her slap him. Instead, it made something inside her tighten, as if her body recognized his authority and wanted to rebel by yielding. She hated it. She hated herself for it. "You have no right," she whispered. "Rights are earned," he said. His fingers brushed her wrist, light testing. The touch was barely there, yet her skin flared as if struck by spark. Maeryn jerked back. "Do not touch me." Rhovan's gaze dropped to where he had touched her, his jaw tightening. "There you are." She backed until her shoulder met the wall. "Move." "Not until you tell me you are safe," he replied. Safe, the same cracked word. "My father is dead," Maeryn hissed. "The man who is supposed to marry me treats me like a locked door he intends to break. Safe is a lullaby." Rhovan's eyes darkened. "Who?" Maeryn swallowed. Words could be used against her, but silence was a rope around her throat. "Vaelcor," she whispered. "And Harwin Grelmark. They were negotiating. He said I can be used to produce an heir. He said I am an incubator." Rhovan went very still. Maerin's confession hung in the air like smoke. "He said he will not marry me," Maeryn continued, voice shaking with rage. "He wants the child and the title. He plans to put another woman in my place as a figurehead, someone he can display while he keeps me hidden. Rhovan's expression shifted into something feral beneath human control. He will not. The certainty in his voice sounded too much like a promise, too much like a claim. How would you stop him? Maeryn demanded. By exposing him, Rhovan said. By breaking him if he resists, by taking you out of his reach. Taking, the word sharpened her fear. If I go with you, Maeryn said, I become yours. If you stay, Rhovan answered, you become his. Choose. Voices carried from downstairs, forced laughter, brittle condolence. The house was full of ears. Vaelcor was full of hunger. Maeryn forced herself to think like her father had trained her. What was the fastest path to freedom? Not the cleanest, not the kindest, the fastest. Do nothing tonight, she said to Rhovan. If you confront him now, he will lock me away before morning. I need a window. Rhovan's jaw flexed. You intend to run? Yes, Maeryn admitted. Where? Away, she said, far enough that his hands cannot reach. Rhovan watched her like he was reading tracks in snow. You cannot outrun wolves. I can, she snapped. My scent is broken. Rhovan's eyes narrowed. Not broken. Changed? A chill slid through her. What does that mean? It means someone interfered with your nature, he said. And if Vaelcor understands what you truly are, he will act faster than your plan allows. Maerin's throat tightened. She remembered the healers after the fire, the bitter herbs forced between her lips, the prayers spoken as if she were already half dead. She had believed it was mercy. What are you? Rhovan murmured, voice low enough to feel like a touch. Your scent is muted, but your body reacts like an omega when pressed. Maerin's vision narrowed. Heat flushed through her skin, sudden and humiliating. For years she had hidden it, swallowed it, pretended she was simply fragile. Bairn had kept her away from strong alphas so she would not be triggered into submission. Rhovan named it anyway. Omega, he said. The word hit like a slap and a key turning in a lock. Her wolf surged, panic and fury tangled together. She hated that her body responded to the truth, that her instincts wanted to fold even as her mind screamed to run. Say that again, Maeryn hissed. Rhovan held her gaze. Is it true? Leave me alone, she rasped. That is why you are hidden, he said. That is why Vaelcor thinks he can control you. Maeryn shoved past him. Rhovan moved fast, bracing his arm against the wall beside her, blocking her path without actually touching. The restraint was somehow worse than force. His scent filled her lungs, cold and intoxicating, and her body betrayed her with a trembling inhale. Move, she whispered. Not until I know you will survive, he replied. Maeryn laughed once sharp. Survive like a wolf survives a trap. Her gaze cut down the corridor toward Bairn's office. She did not have time for this. She needed documents. Proof. Leverage. Rhovan's voice dropped. You are going to the office. Maeryn froze. How do you know? She demanded. You look like someone choosing between knives, he said, and you just chose the one you can hide. She hated how accurate he was. Maeryn forced her voice steady. If you want to help, do not follow, do not interfere. I will not promise that, Rhovan said. Then, unexpectedly, he stepped back and let her pass. Maeryn walked away on shaking legs and reached the office door. The key was hidden where only blood would think to look, in a carved wolf head along the banister. She pressed her thumb into a notch. A panel slid free. Metal kissed her skin. Inside the office, the air smelled of leather and ink. Bairn's presence lingered in objects, in the desk worn by his hands, in the treaties stacked like weapons. Maeryn went to the bookshelf behind the desk and pulled the volume her father had once shown her. A click answered. A hidden panel shifted. A safe door stared back at her. Her fingers did not shake now. Fear made her precise. The safe opened. Birth certificate first. Proof of blood. Proof that she was the key they wanted. Then passports. One in her true name, Maeryn Sablewyn, the surname of her mother, used rarely, hidden like a prayer. Beneath it, another passport wrapped in oilcloth, a different face in the photo, a different name printed clean. Amelia Iverson. Marin's throat tightened hard. Her father had prepared a second life for her without telling her. The tenderness of it nearly broke her. She took cash as well, thick bundles that could not be traced. Then she saw the sealed tube. The will, she had promised herself she would not read it, but promises were for people who were not being hunted. She broke the seal carefully and scanned the formal language, eyes burning. The leadership of the pack and territory would pass to Marin's husband unless a stronger claimant asserted the right through challenge. Her stomach turned. She was not just a daughter. She was a door, a throne built into a body. Maeryn rolled the will back, smoothed the seal, closed the safe, and restored the hidden panel. Then she froze. A scent drifted under the office door, sharp with juniper and quiet cruelty. Vaelcor. Maeryn moved without thinking, slipping behind the heavy curtain by the window. Her heart hammered so loudly she thought it might betray her. The door opened. Vaelcor entered and closed it softly, as if he owned every shadow in the room. He did not light the lamp. He moved through the dark with calm certainty. Maeryn pressed a hand over her mouth. Vaelcor crossed to the bookshelf, her blood iced over. His fingers brushed the treaties, and for a sick moment she thought he would trigger the safe. He did not. Instead, he leaned down and opened a second hidden compartment beneath the desk, one Maeryn had never known existed. He took something small and dark and slid it into his pocket. Marin's mind raced. A key, a ring, a seal, proof, a weapon. Vaelcor stood still for a moment, listening. Then he spoke to the darkness, voice smooth. "Tomorrow you will stand where I place you," he murmured, as if speaking to a lover. "You will smile when I command, and afterward you will give me what your father's blood promised." Marin's vision blurred with rage. She stayed hidden, nails biting skin. "You cannot hide forever," Vaelcor added softly. Then he left, the door clicking shut. Maeryn remained behind the curtain until her lungs burned. When she finally moved, her legs felt like water. He had taken something from her father's secrets. And he believed tomorrow was already won. Maeryn gathered the bundle against her chest and slipped out through the corridor, then down the narrow stair that led toward the servant courtyard. Outside, cold air slapped her face awake. Guards paced the perimeter in patterns, their scents moving like lines drawn on a map. She studied the rhythm, calculating the shift change after the funeral procession began. She could still vanish. A shadow separated from the garden wall. Rhovan stepped into the moonlight, coat collar pale against darkness, eyes fixed on her like he had been waiting for the moment she would finally choose. "You followed me," Maeryn hissed. "No," he said, "I waited. I did not agree to meet you." "Yet you came outside," Rhovan replied, "not back to your guarded room." Marin's breath shook. "He was in the office. He took something from a hidden compartment." Rhovan's jaw clenched. "My scouts saw him go in." Her stomach dropped. "You have men here." "Yes," Rhovan said, "because Bairn's death does not smell like an accident." The words struck like a hammer. Marin's throat tightened around grief. He was all I had left. Rhovan's gaze softened just slightly. "Then do not let them take what he protected." A distant howl cut the night, not mourning, a signal. Torches flared on the balcony, moving fast, coordinated, hunting light sweeping across the grounds. Marin's blood went cold. He knows. Rhovan's hand closed around her wrist again, firm and protective. "Come with me." "If I go with you," Maeryn whispered, "I become yours." Rhovan held her gaze, raw honesty in the steel. "If you stay, you become his. Choose." Footsteps pounded on stone beyond the hedges. Vaelcor's voice carried, smooth and cold. "Find her. Bring her to me. Alive." Marin's wolf surged, panic and fury twisting together. She tasted smoke in her memory and iron in her mouth. Rhovan leaned close, his breath warm against her ear. "Now!" Maeryn closed her eyes for one heartbeat, tasting the moment like poison and honey. Then she nodded. Rhovan pulled her into the shadows as torchlight swept the garden wall, and the night swallowed them just before the hunters. Light found her face. Rhovan's hand stayed locked around her wrist as he pulled her through hedges and stone shadow, moving like he already knew every blind spot in the estate's patrol. Maeryn stumbled once on a root, and he steadied her without slowing, his palm hot through her sleeve, his scent wrapping around her like winter smoke. Torchlight swept past the garden wall, close enough that she saw the flame halos wobble on the mist. A guard's voice barked orders. Another answered. The hunt was not panicked. It was practiced. Marin's stomach turned. Vaelcor had rehearsed this. Rhovan guided her to a narrow gap behind an ivy-covered outbuilding where the ground dropped into an old drainage run. He crouched, listening. She did the same, forcing her breath into shallow silence. Her wolf trembled inside her like a waking animal that did not recognize the world anymore. Footsteps paused above them. Light spilled over the edge. Maeryn pressed her back to stone, throat tightening. A man laughed softly. It was not a guard. It was Vaelcor. Maeryn felt the sound in her bones. It was the same voice that had just promised her body as if it were a treaty. He spoke to someone nearby, low enough that it was meant to be secret but close enough that it slid into the crack between stone and fear. "No mistakes tonight. If she runs beyond the wall, cut her off. If she hides on the grounds, flush her. Bring her to the cellar doors. I want her alive and quiet." Marin's vision narrowed. The cellar. Rhovan's eyes met hers in the dark. He did not look surprised. He looked angry in a way that made her ribs tight, like she was standing next to a restrained storm. When the footsteps moved on, Rhovan lifted a finger to his lips and guided her deeper into the drainage run, where the air smelled of wet earth and old iron. 100 steps later, the run opened into a hidden service tunnel. Maeryn stared. The stones were older than the estate, fitted too tightly for mortal masons. "My father built this," she thought. Or someone built it for him. Another secret, another way out. Rhovan did not explain. He moved forward and she followed, because behind them was torchlight and the cellar, and ahead was darkness with his hand ready to catch her if she fell. The tunnel ended behind a stand of trees beyond the outer wall. Wind hit Marin's face and she inhaled too fast. Cold air. Freedom. And fear, because freedom without shelter was only a different kind of death. Rhovan led her down a slope toward a shallow ravine where 3 riders waited in stillness, horses masked with cloth over their bridles to muffle sound. 2 men sat mounted, their eyes scanning the tree line, their bodies already angled for violence. Betas, his betas. One of them spoke quickly. "Patrols are shifting." They doubled the ring. "Vaelcor is driving them hard." Rhovan's grip tightened on Marin's wrist. He did not look away from the dark woods. "Put eyes on the cellar doors." If they take her scent there, they will assume she is trapped. Let them think it. Maeryn swallowed. He was planning around her like she was the center of a map. It should have made her feel safe. Instead, it made her feel claimed. She pulled her wrist free. I did not ask for your war. Rhovan finally looked at her. You did not ask for his either. His gaze dropped to the scarf around her hair, to the pale skin of her throat, to the shaking in her hands that she hated him for noticing. For a moment, he stepped closer. Marin's body reacted before her mind could, heat under her skin, a pull in her chest. Her wolf pressed toward him as if it had found a heartbeat it recognized. Maeryn clenched her jaw. Do not. Rhovan stopped. He did not touch her. His restraint was almost worse. You are going to keep saying that word like it protects you. It does not. What protects me, she whispered, is leaving. Rhovan's voice stayed calm. Leaving is the easy part. Staying gone is harder. She lifted her chin. I have papers. I have cash. My scent is faint. I can vanish. He studied her for a long moment as if he wanted to argue a new argument would break time they did not have. Then he nodded once. Get on the horse. Maeryn flinched. I am not riding away with you like some prize. You are not a prize, he said, and his voice went colder. You are the heiress of Easthome Reach, and your fiancé is hunting you to breed a child he can steal. If you ride alone, you die alone. The words hit too close to truth. Maeryn hated him for being right. She hated Vaelcor more for forcing the choice. Fine, she said, and climbed onto the horse behind him. She kept her hands on the saddle instead of around his waist. It was a childish distance. It was all she had. They moved through the trees at a controlled pace, not fleeing like prey, but slipping like smoke. Behind them, the estate's lights flickered between branches. The hunt continued, moving in widening circles. Maeryn listened for howls. None came. Vaelcor was keeping the pack human, keeping scent and instinct from complicating his net. Hours later, they reached a temporary camp set in a hollow where the wind changed direction and carried their scent away. Rhovan dismounted and lifted Maeryn down without asking permission. His hands were careful, but the contact still made her breath stutter. She hated that too. A fire was already built but not lit. Supplies were stacked under tarps. This was not an improvisation. He had come prepared to extract someone. Rhovan handed her a cup of water. Drink. Maeryn drank and tasted metal on her tongue, not from the water but from fear that would not leave her. You said your scouts saw Vaelcor go into the office, she said. So you knew I was going there. You knew I was desperate. Rhovan's gaze stayed on her face. I knew something was wrong the moment he refused to present you. Then I met you. As a maid, Maeryn snapped. As a lie, Rhovan's mouth tightened. As a woman trying not to drown. Silence stretched between them. The woods breathed. Somewhere far away, an owl called. Marin's wolf settled slightly, but it did not sleep. It watched him. It watched the way his shoulders stayed squared even in rest, the way his eyes tracked every sound, the way he stood like a man who knew he could be attacked at any second and would still win. What did Vaelcor take, Maeryn asked finally, from the hidden compartment? Rhovan's eyes sharpened. We do not know yet. But there is something else you need to hear before dawn. Marin's stomach tightened. More. Rhovan nodded once, then spoke like he was cutting a rope. Harwin Grelmark is not here for condolences. He is here because Ryver v. Harrow is moving again. Marin's throat went dry. The name felt like cold fingers around her spine. Ryver, the brother who had struck her father from behind after Calith fell. The shadow that had never been caught. You are guessing, she said. No, Rhovan replied. My people intercepted a message outside the estate. It was meant for someone inside. It used an old Vesperfin cipher. That cipher died with Calith except for one man. Marin's hands shook. Rhovan nodded. Vaelcor thinks he is hunting you for power. River is hunting you for revenge. Your fiancé is not the most dangerous wolf in that house. Maeryn closed her eyes for a beat, fighting the urge to fold into herself. She could not afford weakness. Not now. Then why did Vaelcor call for the cellar, she asked. Why not drag me straight to the main hall? Because he wants you hidden, Rhovan said, and because he likely intends to bind you before the will is read. Bind, Maeryn repeated. Rhovan's gaze held hers. There are old rites. Blood and ink, oaths written by an oath scribe. The kind that can make an Omega unable to refuse a claimed bond. Maeryn felt sick. My father would never allow that. Your father is dead, Rhovan said softly. And Vaelcor stole something from his secret compartment. Marin's breath hitched. A seal, a ring, something that lets him force the right. Rhovan's voice dropped. Yes. The camp seemed to narrow around her. The night felt too thin. Marin's wolf growled low, anger and fear tangled. I cannot go back, she whispered. You must, Rhovan replied. Maeryn stared at him. You said I would die if I go alone. You will not go alone, he said. And you will not go back to kneel. You will go back to end this. Her stomach twisted. The estate will be full of alphas. Vaelcor will put on a show. My pack will obey him. Rhovan nodded. That is why it must be done in front of them. If you expose him in private, he buries you in private. If you expose him in front of the council, he has nowhere to hide. Marin's throat tightened. And what do you get from this? Rhovan's gaze did not flinch. Justice for Bairn, stability on my borders, and you alive. She believed the first two. The third was the dangerous one because it sounded too much like a promise that came with strings. Maeryn exhaled slowly. How? Rhovan motioned to one of his betas. Bring the ledger. The beta handed Maeryn a slim book wrapped in oilcloth. It smelled like smoke and road. Maeryn opened it and found notes in a tight, disciplined hand. Names, times, locations, witness lines. Proof gathered like stones for a trial. Vaelcor meeting Harwin in the East Wing. Vaelcor ordering extra guards for Mornwater Hall. Vaelcor's men referring to him as Alpha before right. A list of supplies moved toward the cellar. And one line that made Marin's blood run cold. A young woman brought in from the western hamlets, dark hair, similar height, held under guard, prepared as replacement. Marin's vision blurred with fury. He already found someone to wear my face. Rhovan's voice stayed flat. Yes, Maeryn clenched the ledger so hard her knuckles ached. I will not let her die for me. Rhovan's eyes met hers, something hard and approving there. Good. Then we move before dawn. We take you into the hall during the gathering. We force the will to be read publicly. We force a challenge if needed. A challenge, Maeryn repeated. Rhovan nodded. The will you read in secret said the title passes to your husband unless a stronger claimant asserts the right. That means Vaelcor's plan depends on controlling who is considered your husband. If he binds you through an oath rite, he becomes that husband without even a ceremony. Marin's stomach turned again. And if the council believes I already belong to him, it is done. Rhovan leaned closer, so we do not let the council believe. We show them the replacement. We show them the cellar preparations. We show them proof of coercion. Then we challenge his claim as illegitimate. Marin's pulse raced. Who challenges him? You, Rhovan's gaze held hers, if I must. That was the price. A stronger alpha claiming the right. The will was a trap shaped like law. Either Vaelcor chained her or another alpha took the chain and called it protection. Marin's voice turned sharp. I will not trade one cage for another. Rhovan went still. Do you think I want a cage? I think you want me, Maeryn said, and the honesty shook her. And I think wanting is rarely gentle. Rhovan's jaw flexed. Wanting does not have to be cruel. Maeryn laughed once, brittle. Tell that to Vaelcor. Silence stretched. Then Rhovan said, quieter, you do not have to belong to anyone to accept help. Maeryn looked at him and saw the restraint again, the careful distance he forced on himself, as if he knew he could crush her with a word and refused to. That should have calmed her. Instead, it made her ache in a way she did not understand. Dawn rose gray over the woods. They approached the estate from the far side, where mist hung low and the guards were tired from hunting all night. Rhovan's betas moved first, slipping through shadows. They did not kill, they disarmed, they disabled. Quiet, efficient, relentless. Maeryn walked behind Rhovan, hood up, glasses on, her hair hidden, her heart hammered. Every step toward the house felt like stepping back into fire. At a service entrance, one of Rhovan's men signaled. The cellar line is active. They are moving someone. Marin's stomach dropped. The replacement. Rhovan's hand brushed her elbow. Stay behind me. She wanted to refuse. Her body did not. They descended the service stairs and entered a corridor that smelled of damp stone and storage herbs. 2 guards stood ahead. Rhovan stepped out and spoke one word, low and absolute. Sleep. It was not magic. It was dominance and fear and the knowledge in their eyes that fighting him would mean dying. They hesitated long enough for his betas to strike them unconscious. Marin's mouth went dry. Strong alpha indeed. They moved deeper and reached iron-barred doors. Inside, a young woman sat on a bench with her knees pulled to her chest, dark hair loose, face pale. She looked up and flinched. Marin's throat tightened. She was not a villain, she was bait. Maeryn stepped forward before Rhovan could stop her. Are you hurt? The woman stared at her glasses, her hood, then her eyes filled with tears. They said I could earn safety. They said I would be an alpha's mate. Then they locked me here. Marin's hands clenched. Vaelcor would sell her a dream and use her like a mask. Rhovan's voice turned cold. Who brought you? The woman swallowed, a man with a scar on his hand. He said his name was Harwin. Rhovan's gaze sharpened. Scar, describe it. The woman lifted her own hand shakily and traced a line across her knuckles, like a burn, like he once held fire. Marin's blood iced over. Fire. Rhovan's mouth tightened. River. Maeryn whispered no. Rhovan nodded once. Harwin Grellmark is a name he wears like a coat. He is here. Marin's wolf surged, a sudden terror that made her knees weak. River in the house meant the hunt had never been only Vaelcor's. It meant Bairn's death was not the end of vengeance, but the beginning of it. Rhovan turned to his betas. Get her out, put her under protection. No one touches her. The woman's gaze snapped back to Maeryn. Who are you? Maeryn hesitated. Then she pulled down her hood. White hair slipped free like spilled moonlight. The woman's eyes widened. You are her. Maeryn swallowed. Yes. And you are going to live. Above them, bells rang, not church bells, pack bells, a signal that the funeral procession was forming. The estate was waking. Vaelcor would be preparing his face for the crowd. Rhovan's hand closed around Marin's wrist again, steady. Time. They moved fast upstairs and through corridors that echoed with footsteps and murmured prayers. Maeryn saw pack members in black, heads bowed, faces drawn. She saw women she had grown up with, eyes reddened, hands clasped. She saw men in mourning bands, jaws clenched. She saw loyalty that had been twisted into obedience. Then she saw Vaelcor. He stood at the front of the main hall near the sealed tube that would hold the will, his posture perfect, his grief measured. His eyes were shadowed just enough to look human. Beside him stood another man, broad-shouldered, clean-shaven, hair neatly cut, dressed like a merchant lord paying respect. His gaze swept the room too sharply for a grieving guest. Harwin, River. Maeryn felt her breath catch. Her body wanted to run. Rhovan's presence anchored her like a hand on her spine. Vaelcor began to speak. Brothers and sisters. We gather to honor Alpha Baron Eldrane, who led us with strength, and his gaze flicked and landed on Maeryn as she stepped into the open. The hall went silent in a single shocked breath. Maeryn pulled off her glasses and let them hang from her fingers. Her pale eyes met every gaze without flinching. Her hair, white as frost, told the story of fire without her saying a word. Vaelcor's face went blank. Then his mouth curved into a smile that did not reach his eyes. Maeryn, he said, as if he had not spent the night hunting her, you should not be here. You are unwell. Marin's voice carried through the hall, stronger than she felt. I am well enough to bury my father. I am well enough to stand before my pack. And I am well enough to speak the truth. A murmur rippled, rising like wind. Vaelcor stepped forward, palms open. Grief makes people say foolish things. She has been fragile since childhood. She needs Rhovan's voice cut in, cold and calm. She needs a counsel that is not being lied to. Eyes turned. Visiting alphas straightened. Mates watched with sharpened attention. The room shifted, hungry for scandal, hungry for revelation. Vaelcor's gaze hardened at Rhovan. This is my pack's mourning. Rhovan replied, it is also the council's business when an heiress is hidden, when a beta calls himself alpha without right, and when coercion is used to steal a territory. Vaelcor's smile became sharper. You accuse without proof. Maeryn lifted the ledger Rhovan gave her. Proof. Vaelcor's eyes flicked to it, and a flash of something broke through his mask. Not fear of being discovered. Fear of losing control. He moved closer, voice lowering as if to soothe her. Maeryn, come to me. Do not let outsiders manipulate you. Maeryn heard the trap in the softness. She did not move. Instead, she spoke louder. Last night, I heard Vaelcor Thornivale speak with Harwin Grelmark about using me as an incubator for an heir. I heard him say he will not marry me, but will take my child and my title. I heard him describe replacing me with another woman to fool this council. Gasps cut through the hall. Anger flared in some faces. Curiosity flared in others. Predatory interest flared in a few, and Maeryn saw it, catalogued it, refused to let it break her. Vaelcor laughed once, a sound meant to dismiss. This is hysteria. She is grieving. A visiting alpha stepped forward, voice hard. Where is Maeryn's presence usually? Why have none of us seen her? Vaelcor answered smoothly. She has been in isolation for her health. Rhovan lifted a hand. Then perhaps the council should also see the young woman Vaelcor kept in the cellar as a replacement. The doors at the side of the hall opened, and Rhovan's beta led the dark-haired woman inside. The room erupted. The woman's face was flushed, eyes wild. They told me I would be safe, she said, voice shaking. They told me I would be an alpha's mate. Then they locked me under guard and told me to learn how to smile like the heiress. Vaelcor's control cracked for an instant. His eyes flashed. Then Harwin spoke for the first time, voice mild. A misunderstanding. People say many things in mourning. Should we truly allow a fragile Omega to derail Omega? The word slid into the hall like spilled blood. The entire room went still again. not with grief now, but with the sharp, dangerous attention of wolves who just smelled weakness and power in the same breath. Vaelcor's eyes snapped to Harwin, fury briefly naked. He had not wanted that said publicly. He had wanted Maeryn quietly bound before anyone could speak the word. Marin's stomach turned as every gaze pressed in. Her body reacted, a humiliating flush of heat, an instinctive pull to submit under so much alpha attention. Her wolf trembled, whining inside her ribs. Rhovan shifted closer, not touching but blocking the line of sight from the nearest predators. His voice cut like ice. "Do not look at her like meat. This is a council, not a market." Harwin smiled faintly. Brave words from Frostmere, but alpha's no law. If she is Omega, then she must be managed. Maeryn swallowed rage. Managed. Another word for owned. She forced her voice steady. "I am Omega, and I have been hidden because men like you believe that makes me less human." Vaelcor lifted his hands. "You see, she admits it. She is unstable. She needs guidance." Rhovan's gaze turned to the sealed tube on the table, then read the will, publicly. "Now, let the law speak before anyone claims her body as authority." Vaelcor's jaw tightened. "The will is to be read after the burial." A visiting mate spoke sharply. "If the heiress stands here accusing you of coercion, the will is relevant now." Another alpha nodded. "Read it." Vaelcor hesitated, and that hesitation was the loudest confession in the room. His hand moved toward the tube. Then Harwin moved too fast. He stepped behind Vaelcor with the ease of someone who had killed in close quarters. A blade flashed, not aimed at Vaelcor, but at Maeryn. Rhovan moved like winter lightning. He shoved Maeryn back with his shoulder and caught Harwin's wrist in mid-strike. The blade scraped across Rhovan's forearm, drawing a line of blood. The scent hit the air and every wolf in the hall tensed. Violence. Harwin's mild face fell away, replaced by something older and crueler. His eyes locked on Maeryn and his mouth curved. "There you are, little ash girl." Marin's blood ran cold. The voice, the tone, something in it matched the childhood memory of masked men and fire, not Calith, someone who had watched from the edges and learned patience. "River," Maeryn whispered. Harwin smiled wider. "He is dead, Calith is dead, Bairn is dead, and you were supposed to die in the flames too." Vaelcor stepped back, horrified and furious at once. "What are you doing?" River did not look at him. "You were useful, Vaelcor, a convenient fool who believed he could own her, but I do not want her owned. I want her broken." The hall erupted into chaos. Guards surged. Visiting alphas moved to protect their mates. Wolves snarled. The grief of the night snapped into a violence that had been waiting under the skin. Rhovan kept River's wrist locked. His voice was quiet, lethal. "You killed Bairn from behind." River's grin was feral. "He killed my brother. Honor is a bedtime story. I came to return the pain." Rhovan twisted River's wrist. The blade dropped. A beta kicked it away, but River did not look scared. He looked thrilled. "Because now," he said, "you will all hear the last truth Bairn hid." His gaze flicked to Maeryn, and Maeryn felt the weight of a predator's attention. "He hid your scent, little Omega." "He hid it with an oath scribe's ink after the fire so the Vesperfin could not track you. He weakened your wolf on purpose, to keep you invisible, to keep you alive." Marin's chest seized. "No, my father would never." River's smile widened. "He would do anything to protect what he could not fight for. And when he finally did fight, he died like a fool, thinking killing Calith ended the war." Marin's throat burned. The memory of healers, bitter herbs, whispered prayers, had that been protection? Had her father chosen to alter her nature to save her? Rhovan's gaze flicked to her, sharp and searching, as if he was watching the revelation cut her open. He did not speak. He just stayed between her and Ryver. Vaelcor found his voice again, frantic. "Guards, take him." Ryver laughed. "Take me, tie me. The council can still read the will, and when they do, they will learn that Maeryn is not only a key, she is a weapon." Maeryn's stomach dropped. What did he mean? Rhovan's voice cut through. "Enough, bind him." Betas moved. Ryver fought like someone who wanted blood in his mouth. He landed a blow on one guard, broke another's nose, then finally went down under 3 bodies and iron cuffs. Even restrained, he smiled at Maeryn. "Read it." The sealed tube sat on the table like a snake. Vaelcor's face had drained. He looked trapped now, cornered by consequences he did not understand. His eyes flicked to Maeryn, to Rhovan, to the council, calculating which lie might still hold. Maeryn stepped forward. Her legs trembled. Her instincts screamed to hide, but she was done hiding. If her father had altered her to save her, then she would use that survival to end what hunted her. She took the tube. Vaelcor lunged. "Do not." Rhovan's hand closed on Vaelcor's shoulder and shoved him back with controlled force. "Sit down." The room listened to Rhovan. That was the difference between a true alpha and a man wearing the title like stolen clothing. Maeryn broke the seal and pulled out the parchment. Her hands shook so hard the paper rustled like dry leaves. She read aloud. The first lines were formal, naming Maeryn Eldrane, his holdings, his pack, his daughter. Then the inheritance clause she already knew. The title passes to Maeryn's husband unless a stronger claimant asserts the right through challenge. A murmur rose again, hungry. Then Maeryn's eyes found the section that made her breath stop. A second clause, written in older ink, sealed with a mark she did not recognize. It was not Vaelcor's. It was not even Bairn's usual seal. It stated that if Maeryn was forced into a bond or coerced toward marriage, the will's husband clause became void, and the council must recognize Maeryn as sovereign heiress with the right to choose a champion to lead in her name until she freely named a mate. Maeryn's throat tightened. My father. He had built a trap inside the trap. Vaelcor's face went white. Rhovan's gaze sharpened. Your father anticipated coercion. Maeryn's voice shook as she continued reading. The clause required proof of coercion, and it named an item as proof. The signet of oath sealing kept hidden in Bairn's private compartment. If it was stolen and used, it would be evidence that someone intended to bind her against her will. Maeryn's stomach dropped again. That was what Vaelcor took. All eyes turned to Vaelcor. He lifted his hands, too fast, too desperate. I took it to keep it safe. Rhovan's voice was ice. From the hidden compartment you knew about, but the heiress did not. Vaelcor's gaze flicked to Maeryn, pleading and furious at once. I was protecting you from alphas like him, from predators who would tear you apart the moment they learned you were Omega. Maeryn's laugh came out broken. You protected me by locking me away and discussing my womb like property. Vaelcor's voice sharpened. You do not understand what it means to be Omega in a room full of men who can smell it. Maeryn met his gaze. I understand exactly what it means. That is why I ran. A visiting alpha stepped forward. Where is the signet now? Vaelcor hesitated. That hesitation was a confession. Rhovan's voice dropped. Give it back. Now, Vaelcor's face twisted. If I give it back, everything my life has been aiming for ends. Maeryn's stomach turned. Everything he aimed for was her body and her father's seat. Vaelcor looked at her with something like hatred. I loved you. Maeryn answered softly, and the softness was more cruel than shouting. You loved what you thought I would unlock. Vaelcor's shoulders shook once, then his hand slid into his coat. Marin's heart slammed. She thought blade, thought gun, thought another attack. Instead, he pulled out a small object, dark metal, heavy, a signet ring etched with the old wolf crown mark, the oath seal. He held it up like a bargaining chip. If I surrender it, what do I get? Rhovan took one step forward. You get to walk out alive. Vaelcor's gaze flicked to River, who still smiled in cuffs. Vaelcor saw then what he had been to both sides. A tool, a temporary ladder. Vaelcor's hand tightened around the ring. He threw it, not toward the table, toward River. Chaos hit again. River twisted in his restraints like a serpent, catching the ring in his chained hands with a grin that made Marin's blood freeze. You see, River said, voice loud in the hall, he was never the wolf to fear. He was just the collar. The leash belongs to someone else. He lifted the ring, the oath seal, and Maeryn understood in one sharp breath what River intended. Not to marry her, not to inherit, to bind her through ancient ink so she could not refuse, so her Omega nature would drag her toward submission until she broke. Revenge written into her blood. Rhovan moved first, a blur of dominance and violence. He crossed the hall in 2 strides and slammed into the guards holding River. The guards went down. River laughed and rolled, still cuffed, ring clutched like treasure. Marin's wolf screamed inside her. Run, hide, burn, she did not. She stepped forward and lifted her voice, raw and cutting. Pack of Eastham reach. You swore oaths to my father. You swore to protect this territory from Vesperfin blood. And one of Calith's lines stands here with the tool to enslave your heiress. The room wavered. Then a deep growl rose from the back. A pack elder stepped forward, shaking with rage. River v. Harrow. Another voice joined. A woman Maeryn remembered from childhood, eyes wet with grief and fury. He killed our alpha. The pack's loyalty snapped like dry wood, not toward Vaelcor, toward Bairn's memory, toward the old wound that never healed. River's grin faltered for the first time. Rhovan pinned him, wrenching the ring from his chained hands. River fought, teeth bared, but the hall was no longer his stage. Wolves surged. Visiting alphas stepped in with disciplined force, separating fighters, controlling chaos. Rhovan held the ring up. This is evidence of intent to coerce. Under Maeryn Eldrane's will, any attempted binding voids the husband clause. The heiress retains sovereignty. A heavy silence fell again, the kind that felt like law settling into place. Vaelcor stood rigid, his dream collapsing in front of every witness he had tried to impress. A council elder spoke, voice formal. Maeryn Eldrane, do you accept sovereign heiress status under your father's clause? Maeryn swallowed. Her throat was raw. She looked at the pack. At the faces that had once felt like home. At those who looked ashamed. At those who looked relieved. At those who looked calculating. She looked at Rhovan too and felt the pull like a thread tied around her heart, dangerous and warm. Yes, she said, I accept. The elder nodded. Then name your champion. Marin's breath caught. This was the knife edge. If she named no one, the pack would splinter. If she named Vaelcor, she died inside. If she named Rhovan, she risked trading one claim for another. Rhovan's gaze held hers. No pressure in it, only readiness. Only that steady winter patience. Marin's voice came out quiet. I name Rhovan Asterforge as champion to enforce the council's law and remove those who sought to coerce me. Vaelcor's face twisted. You choose an outsider. Maeryn looked at him. I choose survival. The elder's voice turned formal again. Then the council recognizes the champion. Vaelcor Thornevale is stripped of authority pending judgment. Ryver v. Harrow is held for murder and attempted coercion. The heiress is to be placed under council protection until she freely chooses otherwise. Vaelcor's mouth opened, but no sound came. He had built a cage and found himself inside it. They buried Bairn that afternoon under a sky that could not decide between sun and snow. Maeryn stood at the grave, her hair uncovered, her pale eyes steady, her grief a quiet animal curled in her chest. Rhovan stood behind her, not touching, but close enough that she felt his heat like a wall against wind. When the final rites ended, Maeryn knelt and pressed her palm to the earth. "Father," she thought, "I am still alive." And she felt something shift in her wolf, not strength returning like magic, something more subtle, permission. Permission to breathe without asking. That night, under council guard, Vaelcor was questioned. His story unraveled fast once it met evidence. He had been negotiating with Ryver under the name Harwin for months, believing he was buying support to secure the title. Ryver had fed his ambition like a pet, promising him control in exchange for access. Access to Maeryn, access to the estate, access to the oath seal. Vaelcor had thought he would be the master. He had been the door. When the council sentenced him, it was not death. It was exile stripped of rank and oath, a punishment that left him alive to watch everything he wanted become ash. Vaelcor's last look at Maeryn was not hatred. It was hollow hunger, like a man who finally realized he had never known how to love. Ryver's judgment was different. In the courtyard at dawn, Ryver was brought out in chains. He did not beg. He smiled at Maeryn as if they shared a private joke. "I told you, little ash girl," he said. "Vengeance is patient." Maeryn stepped forward until she was close enough to smell him. Smoke and old blood and satisfaction. Her hands did not shake. "You came to finish what your brother started," she said. "You came to burn me again." Ryver's eyes glittered. "Yes." Maerin's voice stayed calm, "but you forgot something." Ryver tilted his head. "You forgot that I survived fire once. I learned how to breathe in smoke. I learned how to crawl through narrow places. I learned how to become invisible." She leaned closer. "And you forgot that my father raised me to be more than prey." Ryver's smile faltered again. The council did not allow Maeryn to deliver the sentence. They called it law. They called it order. But Maeryn knew the truth. They did not want an Omega heiress associated with blood. They wanted her clean for politics. Rhovan looked at her when the blade fell. He did not ask her to watch. He did not ask her to turn away. He simply stood beside her and let her choose. Maeryn watched, not because she enjoyed it, because she needed the ending to be real. Afterward, as the courtyard emptied, Maerin's legs finally weakened. She stepped back into a quiet corridor and pressed her forehead to stone. Her breath shook. Rhovan's hand touched her shoulder, light, not claiming, grounding. "It is over," he said. Maeryn laughed once, breathless and bitter. "Over. My father is still dead. My pack is still full of wolves who smelled Omega and looked at me differently." Rhovan's voice stayed low. "Wolves are wolves, but not all wolves are cruel." Maeryn turned and looked at him. His forearm was wrapped where Ryver's blade cut him. The scent of his blood made her wolf stir in a way that frightened her, not with hunger, but with instinctive concern. "You bled for me," she whispered. Rhovan's gaze held hers. "I bled to stop coercion. Do not turn it into a debt." Maeryn swallowed, throat tight. Everything in her life had been debt and obligation, traded by men who called it protection. His refusal to turn it into a leash felt like the first clean thing she had ever been offered. She stepped closer before she could stop herself. Rhovan did not move. He waited like he was giving her control down to the last inch of distance. Maeryn lifted her hand and touched his wrapped forearm gently. His skin was warm beneath fabric. He inhaled, slow, and she felt it like a shiver through him. "Your scent," she whispered. "It is everywhere." Rhovan's mouth tightened. "So is yours." Marin's pulse stumbled. She hated that her Omega nature responded to him. She hated that it felt like safety and danger in the same breath. She lifted her gaze to his eyes. "If I stay near you," she said, "I will not be able to pretend I am untouched by instinct." Rhovan's voice dropped. "Do not pretend then." Marin's breath caught. That was not a command. It was an invitation. And it was terrifying. She rose onto her toes and pressed a kiss to the corner of his mouth, barely there, more question than act. She pulled back immediately, heart racing, ready for him to take too much. Rhovan did not. He exhaled, eyes closing for a beat like restraint cost him pain. Then he opened them and said, "Again, if you want." Marin's throat tightened. "Want?" She kissed him again, longer, still restrained, the kind of kiss that carried grief and anger and relief all tangled together. Rhovan's hand rose to her waist and stopped there, holding her lightly as if she were something precious that could be frightened away. Maeryn felt herself soften. Not submission, something else. Trust trying to exist in a body that had been trained to fear. When she pulled back, her lips tingled, her breath shook. "I am not ready to belong," she whispered. Rhovan's voice was steady. "Then do not belong, choose every time." Maeryn stared at him, and for the first time since the night of the fire, the idea of choosing felt possible. The council offered Maeryn sovereignty with conditions, advisors, guards, political marriages suggested in careful language. She listened, nodded, and watched the shark circle. They wanted her stable, they wanted her controlled. Even those who sympathized treated her Omega nature like a volatile resource. Rhovan watched too. On the third day, after the estate's corridors stopped echoing with chaos and started echoing with politics, Maeryn found Rhovan in the courtyard where frost clung to stone. "I am leaving," she said. Rhovan did not pretend surprise. "Where?" "Away from here," she answered. "I cannot heal inside the place where I was hidden. I cannot learn who I am while everyone watches me like a problem to solve." Rhovan's gaze held hers. "Come to Frostmere." Marin's stomach tightened. "That is a different cage." Rhovan shook his head once. "Frostmere is harsh, yes, but it is honest. There are rules. They do not pretend to be tenderness." Maeryn swallowed. "And what would I be there?" Rhovan's voice turned quiet. "Safe, and free to decide what you want to be." She studied him for a long moment. His offer was not a chain if she could walk away. Then Maeryn nodded. "I will come. On my terms." Rhovan's mouth curved slightly, not a smile of triumph but one of relief. "On your terms." They left Easthome Reach at dawn under council escort. Maeryn did not look back until the estate disappeared behind trees. When it did, she exhaled like she had been holding her breath for years. Frostmere was colder than she imagined. The air bit. The land felt wide and uncompromising. But when Maeryn arrived at Rhovan's stronghold, she did not find a gilded prison. She found a place built for survival, clean lines, disciplined guards, laws spoken clearly. Rhovan gave her rooms that faced the mountains. No locks on the inside. No guards at her door unless she asked. Her name was spoken as Maeryn, not Heiress, not Omega, not Asset. At night, when her nightmares came, she walked the corridors until her breath steadied. Sometimes she found Rhovan awake in a training hall, striking a post with controlled violence as if keeping something in his body from breaking loose. He would glance at her and say nothing, making space without forcing it. Sometimes she walked closer and sat on a bench, and they shared silence that felt like a bridge. Weeks turned into months. Marin's wolf did not become suddenly strong, but it became less afraid. It began to lift its head. It began to recognize that the world was not only fire. And the pull between her and Rhovan sharpened into something that neither of them could pretend was only desire. One night, snow falling softly outside the windows, Maeryn found him in the library, reading by lamplight. She stood in the doorway until he looked up. "You are staring," he said. Marin's voice came out too honest. "I do not know how to be wanted without being owned." Rhovan set the book aside. "Then learn." Maeryn stepped in, heart racing. "How?" Rhovan stood and approached slowly. He stopped in front of her without touching. He lifted his hand and waited, giving her the chance to refuse. Maeryn lifted her own hand and placed it in his. His fingers closed gently. "Choose," he murmured. Maeryn swallowed. "I choose you. Tonight, not forever, not as a contract, as a truth." Rhovan's eyes darkened. "Then tonight is enough." He kissed her then, not careful, not cruel, but deep with restraint that still honored her choice. His hand slid to the back of her neck, thumb brushing skin, and her body reacted with a shiver that made her hate and love her own instincts at once. She pressed closer, and for the first time it did not feel like falling. It felt like stepping forward. Later, when they lay tangled in blankets with the fire low, Maeryn traced the scar near Rhovan's jaw with a fingertip. "If I had not run," she whispered, "I would have been bound." Rhovan's voice was rough. "If you had not run, I would have broken the rules of every territory to take you out anyway." Marin's breath caught. "Take." Rhovan met her gaze. "I am not proud of that, but it is true." Maeryn stared at him, the firelight turning his eyes almost silver, and realized the most frightening thing was not his confession. It was how much relief it brought to hear a man admit the ugly part out loud. "I believe you," she said, voice thin, "and that is exactly why this has to be different." Rhovan did not move. He waited as if patience was a vow. Maeryn forced the words through the tightness in her chest. "No binding, no public claim, no council contract dressed up as romance. If I give you anything, it is because I chose it while fully awake." His throat bobbed. "Then I will not take what you do not hand over." She exhaled, shaky. "Say it again." "I will not bind you," Rhovan said, each word steady, like a blade laid flat on a table. "Not with ink, not with blood, not with dominance. If you stay because you want to. If you leave, I will not hunt you." The last line struck her like something sacred. Wolves hunted what they wanted. Alphas hunted what they claimed. He had just promised to let her go. Marin's wolf, still bruised and wary, lifted its head inside her. Not submissive, listening. "Then listen," Maeryn whispered. "I am not only a woman you want. I am a territory they tried to steal. I am a story they will twist. If I fall, the council will say it proves an Omega cannot lead herself. If I choose you too fast, they will say I traded one alpha for another." Rhovan's gaze burned. "What do you want them to say?" Maeryn swallowed. "I want them to say I survived and kept my name." Silence stretched between them, thick with the weight of everything she had been taught to fear. Then Rhovan nodded once. "Then keep it. Keep your name, keep your seat, keep your sovereignty. Let Frostmere shelter you without swallowing you." Marin's eyes stung. She blinked it away, furious at how close she was to breaking. "You are not gentle," she said. "No," he admitted. "And yet you are trying to be." Rhovan's mouth tightened like the truth hurt. "I am trying to be what you can live with." Maeryn shifted closer, her bare shoulder brushing his chest. The contact sent heat through her that felt both humiliating and holy. She hated how her Omega instincts woke for him, how her skin wanted what her mind still doubted. "Then you live with this," she murmured. "I will not be hidden again, not for your reputation, not for your politics." Rhovan's hand rose, hovering near her cheek, then stopping as if he was asking permission without words. Maeryn leaned into his palm on purpose. Rhovan exhaled like he had been holding himself back since the moment he first smelled her in that morning room. His thumb brushed her cheekbone, slow, almost reverent. "Tell me what you want," he said. Marin's voice came out rough. "I want to stop flinching when a man reaches for me." Rhovan's eyes darkened, not with hunger this time, but with something that looked like pain. "Then I will not reach unless you pull." Maeryn did. She tangled her fingers in his shirt and drew him down to her mouth. The kiss was not soft. It was controlled, like two storms learning the shape of each other without destroying the world around them. His mouth was warm, insistent, and he still stopped at the edge of taking more, waiting for her breath, waiting for her hands, waiting for the slightest sign of hesitation. Maeryn gave none. When she pulled back, her lips tingled and her pulse felt too loud in the quiet room. "Tonight," she whispered. "Only tonight." Rhovan's forehead rested against hers. Tonight is enough. That night did not fix her. It did not erase the fire or the cellar or Vaelcor's voice promising ownership. But it did something quieter and more dangerous. It taught her that desire could exist without surrender. Morning came cold and bright. Frostmere moved like a disciplined machine, guards changing shifts with silent efficiency, courtiers bowing with eyes too sharp, servants carrying trays as if they could hear rumors breathing under every door. The council did not leave Maeryn alone, even here. Letters arrived sealed in wax, invitations to discuss stability, offers to secure alliances. The language was polite, but the hunger beneath it was familiar. Rhovan read the letters without expression and placed them back in Maerin's hands. "Your choice." Maeryn burned one of them in the hearth and watched the paper curl into ash. "They will never stop trying." "No," Rhovan said, "so we give them a shape they can accept. A shape you control." Maeryn glanced at him. "And what shape is that?" "Public sovereignty," he said, "and private truth." She understood what he meant. A queen without a visible crown made others reach for her head. She needed to stand openly in her role with a court that answered to her name, not to her womb. So Maeryn began to rule, first in small ways. She met Frostmere's stewards and learned which trade lines fed the winter stores. She listened to border reports and began to see how easily raiders could become wars if leadership faltered. She wrote to Eastham Reach and named an interim council chosen from elders who had stood against River, wolves who had proven loyalty to Bairn's memory rather than to Vaelcor's ambition. Some of them hated her for leaving. Some of them worshipped her for surviving. Most of them feared the power of an Omega heiress who refused to be handled. Maeryn learned to let them fear. Fear could be a boundary. Rhovan stayed near without hovering. He did not speak over her. He did not correct her in front of others. But at night, when the halls quieted, he would pull her into his arms in the dark and kiss her like he had been hungry since the day he met her. And Maeryn, slowly, stopped counting the seconds until she might need to run. One evening, months after she arrived, Maeryn stood on a balcony watching snow fall into the courtyard. Her breath fogged the air. Rhovan stepped behind her close enough that his heat touched her back. He did not embrace her. He waited. Maeryn spoke first. "My scent is changing." Rhovan's voice came low. I know, she swallowed. I can feel it. It is like something uncurling, like my body remembers what it was before the fire. Rhovan's hand hovered at her waist. Do you want to explore it? Marin's pulse skipped. Or is that dangerous? It is dangerous, he said simply. Because if your omega presents fully, every alpha within a mile will feel it. They will come, some out of curiosity, some out of hunger, some to test whether you can be taken. Marin's mouth went dry. And you? Rhovan's fingers brushed her hip barely there. And me? Maeryn turned to face him. His eyes were steady, but she saw the restraint in his jaw, the careful control that looked like pain. I don't want to be a beacon, Maeryn whispered. Then you won't be, Rhovan said. We can keep you shielded until you decide otherwise. Maeryn stared at him. How? Rhovan hesitated. There is an oath scribe in Frostmere, one who knows the old inks, the kind your father used to mask you after the fire. Marin's heart clenched. So it was ink. Rhovan nodded. A protective binding, not a claiming one. It hid you from the Vesperfin. It also muted you from yourself. Marin's breath shook. My father did that. He did it to keep you alive, Rhovan said. Maeryn looked away, fighting tears. He saved me by breaking me. Rhovan's voice softened. He saved you by making you harder to find. Now you get to decide what you become next. That night, Maeryn agreed to meet the Oath Scribe. The Oath Scribe was older than Maeryn expected, skin lined like parchment, eyes clear and sharp. Their hands were stained with ink that did not wash off. They bowed not to Rhovan but to Maeryn. Sovereign Heiress, the Oath Scribe said. Ash Girl, Fire Survivor. Maeryn stiffened. Do not call me that. The Oath Scribe tilted their head. Names are hooks. They catch what wants to be caught. I do not use them to harm. I use them to reveal. Marin's stomach tightened. Reveal what? The Oath Scribe stepped closer, sniffed the air once, and smiled faintly. Your mask is cracking. That is why you feel strange. It was never meant to last forever. Rhovan's body tensed behind Maeryn, but he did not interrupt. Maeryn forced herself to stand still. Can you remove it? I can loosen it, the Oath Scribe said. I can also tighten it, but what you are asking is not simply ink, it is identity. Marin's voice went quiet. I want to be myself. The Oath Scribe's gaze flicked to Rhovan. Then choose the conditions, because if your omega rises fully, you will not only be yourself, you will be a signal, and the world will answer. Marin's throat tightened. I choose control. I choose a slow return. The Oath Scribe nodded. Then I will give you a gradual waking. Enough for you to breathe without calling predators. They painted a single symbol on Marin's wrist in clear ink that dried like cold skin. It did not sting. It warmed faintly like a heartbeat under her pulse. That night, Marin's dreams changed. The fire came again, but this time she did not suffocate. She moved through smoke and found a door she had never seen before. She opened it and stepped out. She woke gasping. Rhovan was already upright, watching her like he could feel the shift in her blood. Maeryn pressed her palm to her wrist and felt the faint warmth of the ink. Something is happening. Rhovan's voice was low. Yes. She sat up, hair spilling loose, skin damp with sweat. It scares me. Rhovan's hand reached, then stopped, hovering. Tell me what you need. Maeryn looked at him, at the man who had bloodied his arm for her, then stepped back when she demanded space, then built her a place in his world without taking her name. I need you, she whispered, but not as a cage. Rhovan's eyes darkened. Then as what? Maeryn swallowed. As the one who stays when I stop running. Rhovan's breath hitched. He moved then slowly and gathered her into his arms. The embrace was strong, sheltering, and she did not feel trapped. She felt held. Weeks passed. The ink warmed more often, and Maerin's scent began to sharpen in small, controlled waves like a tide learning its shore. She learned to manage it with breath and focus. Rhovan taught her how to anchor her instincts without crushing them. Then one morning, Maeryn woke nauseous. She blamed the winter air, the stress, the council letters, until the nausea returned at dusk. And again the next dawn, and her skin felt too sensitive, her senses too sharp, her appetite strange. Rhovan noticed before she admitted it. He always noticed. "You are changing," he said quietly one night, his hand resting on her hip, his mouth close to her throat without biting, without claiming, just breathing her in like he had waited a lifetime. Maerin's voice trembled. If there is a child," Rhovan went very still. Maerin's heart slammed. She had not planned this. She had not wanted to become a story about an Omega and an Alpha making an heir. She had wanted to be more than that. "I will not be reduced to a womb," she said sharply, panic flashing. "Not even for you." Rhovan pulled back enough to look at her face. His eyes were intense, but his voice stayed careful. "You are not reduced. You are expanded." Maeryn swallowed, tears rising anyway. What if the council uses it? "Let them try," Rhovan said, and the quiet threat in his tone made her wolf lift its head. "This child would not be a leash. This child would be ours only if you want that word." Maerin's hands shook. She pressed them to his chest. "I don't know if I can survive motherhood after surviving everything else." Rhovan kissed her forehead. "Then you will not do it alone." When the healer confirmed it, Maeryn sat in silence for a long time, staring at her own hands like they belonged to someone else. A child. She thought of Vaelcor's voice calling her an incubator. Rage flared hot, then cooled into something steadier. This child would not be stolen, not by council, not by pack, not by old ghosts. Rhovan kept his promise. He did not announce it like a political move. He did not parade her. He tightened security quietly. He made sure Maeryn had space. He learned her moods with the patience of a man who knew every wrong move could reopen old wounds. When Maerin's body grew heavy, he helped her climb stairs without making her feel fragile. When nightmares came, he stayed awake beside her without forcing touch. When she cried for no reason she could name, he let her cry like it was a storm that deserved to pass. And when labor finally came, it came like a war. Maeryn gripped the sheets, sweat slick on her skin, breath tearing. Pain was a violent tide. It reminded her of fire, of smoke in lungs, of helplessness. Then Rhovan's hand gripped hers, hard, anchoring her. "Look at me," he said, voice rough. "You are here, you are safe, you are not burning." Maeryn sobbed and dragged breath into herself, riding the wave. Hours later, a cry cut the room, sharp and alive. Maerin's entire body shook as the healer placed the child against her chest. He was warm, small, furious at the world, his fists clenched like he had already decided he would never be owned. Rhovan stared like he had forgotten how to breathe. Maerin's voice cracked. "He is real." Rhovan's fingertips hovered over the baby's head, then touched gently, almost afraid. "He is," Maeryn swallowed. "Caelian," she whispered, and the name felt like a light in her mouth. "Caelian?" Rhovan looked at her, eyes wet. "Caelian?" The first weeks after birth were a blur of exhaustion and raw tenderness. Maerin's body felt like it belonged to two different lives, the one that fought and the one that fed a child at night while snow pressed against the windows. Rhovan learned the rhythm of it like a new kind of battle. He warmed cloths, held the baby while Maeryn slept, paced the room when Caelian cried with that fierce newborn rage. He spoke softly to his son, voice low and steady, and Maeryn watched the strongest alpha she had ever seen become gentle without losing power. One night, Maeryn woke to find Rhovan sitting by the hearth with Caelian against his chest, skin to skin, both of them breathing slowly in sync. Marin's throat tightened. "You look afraid." Rhovan did not look away from the baby. "I am? Of what?" Rhovan's voice was quiet. "Of failing you, of failing him, of the world finding ways to hurt what I love." The word love landed like a soft blow. Maeryn sank beside him, tired to the bone, hair loose, skin still tender from birth. "I am afraid too." Rhovan turned his head and kissed her temple. "Then we will be afraid together, we will still win." A knock came at the door. Rhovan's entire body sharpened. He shifted Caelian carefully, then stood, moving like a weapon waking. A guard spoke through the door. "Alpha, the Oath Scribe requests an audience. It is urgent." Marin's stomach tightened. "Now," Rhovan glanced at her. "Only if you want." Maeryn looked down at Caelian, asleep again, mouth soft, fists unclenched. She exhaled. "Yes." The Oath Scribe entered with a folded cloth bundle and a face more serious than usual. They bowed to Maeryn first, then to Rhovan. "You have done well," the Oath Scribe said quietly. "Your ink is stable. Your scent is yours again." Marin's heart beat faster. "Then why urgent?" The Oath Scribe opened the cloth bundle, revealing a small wooden token carved with two intertwined symbols, one like a wolf crown, one like a star. "Fate has already begun working," they said. "Not on you, on the child." Rhovan's jaw tightened. "Explain." The Oath Scribe's gaze was steady. "Caelian is marked for a true mate bond." Maeryn froze. A true mate bond was not a romantic superstition in their world. It was the kind of fate that shaped territories, ended wars, began them. "With whom?" Rhovan asked, voice too calm. The Oath Scribe set the token down. "A girl named Surith." Marin's throat tightened. "I do not know that name." "You will," the Oath Scribe replied. "Her bloodline threads through old alliances, through families you have not yet met. Lionel's house, Anwin's line, bonds that were meant to heal fractures between territories." Rhovan went still, and Maeryn felt his tension spike like a blade drawn. This was not only personal, it was political. It was the future reaching into their present. Marin's voice came out low. "He is a baby." "Yes," the Oath Scribe said, "and fate is early." Rhovan's gaze dropped to Caelian, sleeping, unaware that his life had been placed on a board. "No one touches him," the Oath Scribe nodded. "That is why I came now, so you are not surprised later, so you can build walls before others build plans." Marin's arms tightened around herself. She felt the old panic try to rise, the fear of being turned into a key again, of having her child turned into one too. Then Caelian stirred against Rhovan's chest and made a small sound, half complaint, half demand. Maeryn looked at her son and felt something stronger than fear settle into her bones. "No," she whispered, and the word was not fragile this time, it was sovereign. "No one will write his life for him, not the council, not fate, not old bloodlines." Rhovan looked at her, and something fierce and tender moved across his face. "Then we agree," he said. Maeryn stepped closer and rested her hand on Caelian's back, feeling the steady warmth of him, the simple truth of breath. "We survived fire," Maeryn said softly. "We survived wolves. We survived men who tried to turn bodies into doors." She lifted her gaze to Rhovan. "We will survive prophecy too." Rhovan's mouth curved, a rare, real smile. "Yes." Outside, snow fell in thick, quiet sheets, sealing the stronghold in white. Inside, the hearth crackled, and Kalian slept between them like a promise that was not owned by anyone. And for the first time, Maeryn felt the future approach without tasting smoke. If Maeryn could rewrite one moment from her past, which would save her future? The night of the fire or the moment she met Rhovan? Drop your answer in the comments and tell us if you think fate or choice shapes a true mate bond.